Welcome to episode 8 of BM by BM. I am Bailey.
I'm Maxie.
And we are discussing books and movies by Bailey and Maxie.
Yeah, these are movies and books that warned us that are about, let's say, either post-apocalyptic or dystopian, or pretty much clues that have been left for us over the years. And so we are discussing all the clues that we should have picked up on. Tonight we're discussing a film called Brazil. This was made in 1985. Is that correct?
Yes.
So in the movie, the main character is a low-level bureaucrat in what would you call the society? This is a society that is obsessed with
paperwork
and protocols and just the minutia of it all. Mm-hmm. Shout out to the French chef in the background again. Do not let him stop.
Okay.
But yeah, anyway, so he is just bogged down in all you have to have a mass of forms to do the simplest things.
Okay, how much did you think about special education and education in general, and all of the paperwork that it takes for that?
Right. So they're in this society where you're obsessed with the paperwork of it all, and so you have these masses of people generating and handling paperwork. Mm-hmm. And so the movie opens with a simple transposition of letters. So they arrest the wrong man for something, and trying to figure out the mistake is what kind of starts our title character down the path of trying to uncover basically what's up.
Right. And it's a good 10 minutes before you actually see the lead character, which this film was written and directed by Terry Gilliam, and he's one of the members of Monty Python. So it's there's slapstick and it is funny, but it's also serious and takes jabs at certain things that we believe or take for granted. So Sam Lowry's the main character, and I guess I would say that the government, it does seem like a bureaucracy at some level, but instead of mind control and making you second guess yourself outright by changing things like in 1984,
right,
they attack people's minds by making them do needless paperwork. At one point, Robert De Niro is this heating engineer, I think is the term they use for him.
Yes.
And he says that he's basically a vigilante heating engineer.
Right.
And he got out of it because the paperwork was too much for him. So it's a lot of paperwork. There's a lot of paperwork.
So it's really interesting, that idea of using minutia to beat people into submission. We're not going to control you by telling you what you can and can't do. We're just going to make it borderline impossible. And it's interesting that kind of the control of the way things are affects even people who are exerting the control, who are the controllers. Mm-hmm. There's a point in the movie where Sam's supervisor, that there's a refund to be issued, and the man just freaks out because he's like, well, what will we even do here? He's just totally flustered about the entire concept of reversing any decision that was made.
Right.
Just in a total panic over this thought. So it's really interesting.
And even Michael Palin later on, he's kind of an interrogator, and he basically takes no blame in it for potentially killing the wrong man. He was like, well, you brought me the right man under the wrong pretenses, so it's not my fault, it's your fault. So nobody takes the blame for this bug landing in a typewriter and changing someone's name from Tuttle to Buttle or Buttle to Tuttle. It's very confusing. But yes. So paperwork is one thing. Another thing that I wish I could ask Terry Gilliam about, there are terrorist attacks, and they've been going on for 13 years.
Yes.
In one scene, they're at a restaurant, and there's a bomb that goes off, and then the maitre d' brings a screen and covers it up. And like, part of me wonders, was that specifically directed towards the Troubles in Ireland and Northern Ireland? Was it just how we've become jaded as a society to terrorism attacks and bombings? Or what was it exactly? Like, if there was one specific thing, or if it was just terrorism in general. But they do use the word terrorist. They talk about how there were attacks for 13 years, but the government says that they have it under control. But there are still, I mean, there's at least 2 bombings that I can remember from the film that go on, and people in areas of business like a restaurant, or the other one's a shop, a store, and people just go on regular, like nothing happened, because they're used to it.
Right. Yeah. So it's interesting. I don't know if you remember this, but at the beginning of the movie, there's an ad on TV for like beautiful ducks, like your duck work, like you're exposed.
Yeah.
But then when Sam has this problem with his heat, so it's too hot. His cooling system is broken, so he calls in a panic, and this is when the vigilante a repairman shows up. But then in another scene in the movie, there's this entire mass of ducks and like all this stuff. It's as if they are creating, and so they're creating this entire layer upon layer of non-functioning like waste. That the systems are so complicated that they can't help but break down.
Right.
So it's very, but they have to do it that way, and they have to have a form to do all this stuff. So but folks are really proud of their duck work, So it's interesting, like this in this, yes, very slapstick sort of society. There's this kind of idea that even the most basic things that you need, like physical comfort from heat and cold, have been made into this massively complicated thing. Instead of just not doing anything, not having any heating and cooling for people, we're going to make it so complicated, as a way to, I don't know, maybe make the levers of the way things work so complicated that becomes a mechanism of control.
Absolutely. Another theme that the film brings up is plastic surgery. So
Sam's mom.
At one point, Sam's mom, like, she gets, I guess, her jowls pulled. It's really well done. Jim Broadbent plays her surgeon.
Yeah.
And he's great. I love him. He's wonderful. But it's just really funny. Also, I knew the mom. I recognized the mom from the TV series Soap. Like, my parents used to watch that. And so I thought it was really funny that I recognized the mom. But she gets plastic surgery done. And it does remind me of the Capitol and Hunger Games, where people get a lot of cosmetic surgery done to change their appearance. But it's almost like it's a competition. Like, these women talk about, ooh, well, I went to this doctor and this is what he did. And there's actually one woman in the film who continually gets plastic surgery continually has complications, and then her complications have complications. And at one point, you're at her funeral, and her coffin is like just jelly and bones.
Yeah.
And it's a lot, but it's very reflective of the culture that we have. And
Right.
Not just beauty, ageism, but also consumerism is a huge part of this film. Yes, there are ads to get your ducks done, but also, did you notice the film takes place around Christmas time?
Right. Right.
The entire film, there are wreaths, there are Christmas trees, there's Santa, and Santa asks this little girl, what does she want? And she says she wants a credit card.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then there's a band, instead of like the Salvation Army band performing, it's the Consumers for Christ performing.
Right.
So flat out calling out Christianity.
Right.
Which, to be honest, we need that. But it's also
How dare you question?
It's just so much attacking American consumerism, but that's the system that we built in this country. So what are your thoughts?
Well, absolutely on that part. That, and it's interesting to me to make this tie in too. So you referenced the restaurant scene when they're eating. Yeah. He's having lunch. Sorry, Sam is having lunch with his mother and his mother's friend, the one you've mentioned already, and her daughter. There's an attack in the restaurant. This is when there's an explosion while they're eating, and they just keep eating. Oh, also, put a pin in that. Back up a minute. They order, and then the maid or the waiter brings them little scoops of goop with a picture of whatever they ordered in a little holder on the plate. So that's interesting. A little, I don't know whether that was supposed to be a jab at the whole gourmet thing going a little too far. My palate isn't refined enough to know whether that was really it. Anyway, back to explosion. They just keep eating. They just keep having the conversation they were having as if nothing had happened. And they're, that, yes, as you just said, they're talking about, surgeries, upgrades, all this stuff. And Sam is worrying his mother. He doesn't want the promotion that she's wrangled for him. But to me, to answer your question, it's that even when the pain, the suffering, the loss of life happens literally in front of us, we just keep eating. Mm-hmm. We block it out and we move on. They couldn't even be bothered to notice, let alone comment, let alone see. Here's a somewhat powerful lady who's able to pull strings and get her son a new job, but she apparently can't do anything about what she sees going on around her and the pain and suffering she sees.
It reminds me of the line from Joaquin Phoenix in Hotel Rwanda when he says, like, people will be eating their dinner, say, oh my gosh, that's terrible, and then just go on. Like, we're so jaded to suffering, to hardships that are happening outside, even if it's right next door, that we just, I don't know if we don't know how to handle it, so then we don't participate in it. But we're supposed to just be with people in that, like right now. Yeah. We're just supposed to sit in the terribleness, and there's nothing that we can do about it, but that's not really comforting to people.
Yeah. I don't know. It's difficult for me, especially, I did grow up in Nigeria, and it's really interesting for me to see. This really hits home for me a lot of times because, there are folks out there protesting today, the last couple of days, their loss of freedom to go about their business and do whatever it is they want to do. When my parents still live in Lagos in Nigeria. People there are protesting because they're starving. So it's interesting to me. This
Right.
We will turn apoplectic if you threaten our comfort here. That's what this is about. And we are willing to ignore the suffering not halfway around the world, like in Nigeria, the suffering in our own town. We are willing to ignore that if in so doing we can stay in the comfort that we have built for ourselves.
Right. And you can kind of see that as an aside in the film when Sam tries to drop off the refund check to the wife of the man who was wrongfully imprisoned and probably killed. But he doesn't know how to talk to her when she's like, "Where's the body? What did my husband? He didn't do anything wrong. He's a good man."
Right.
It makes us uncomfortable.
Right.
Let me point something out real quick.
Yeah.
So, to our one viewer who's out there, thank you for watching.
Hey, fan.
If you have any questions, please feel free to type a comment. We receive them live, so we can also post your comment to the screen if you have a question about the film or a question for us. So continue, Maxie.
Yeah, so I was going to ask if you wanted to comment on the Sam and Jill interplay at all.
Okay, so the actress who plays Jill reminds me a lot of the actress who plays Jan on The Office. I think they look similar, but it's not the same person. But for me, the movie was a little long. Their relationship just seems, it's in terms of my opinion, the relationship seems somewhat healthy as opposed to other things that we've seen. Kind of like Trinity and Neo. She's a strong woman. She does get him out of trouble sometimes, but he is potentially obsessed with her. He dreams about her. He sees her in this fantasy world where he has an eye lightning, kind of like Ziggy Stardust. So he has dreams about her. He sees her. He goes after her. She doesn't trust him. And that's one of the things I like too. In their dialogue, they agree that they don't trust each other, but then they do come to trust each other. So I like her, but she doesn't really develop a lot.
Well, I wonder if in the film he likes the idea of her, that she is a bug in the system. She's her own woman, as you've pointed out. She also is attempting to figure out. So she's a neighbor. She's the upstairs neighbor of the Tuttle that was wrongfully imprisoned. She's trying to help sort all that out, which is dangerous for her to do. It's dangerous to question the system, but she's doing it anyway. So I don't know if this is a fully formed thought, but I do wonder if he just enjoys the idea of something that's different, and it's the differentness that is attractive to him.
Right. Like, she is not some cosmetic surgery consumer who is all gussied up. Like, she has short hair throughout the film, which is great, which also makes it easier for her to wear wigs in some scenes. She dresses in pants. The majority of women you see in the film are like 1950s hat and a skirt suit with lipstick. So she is very different from anyone else. And there aren't a lot of women in this film in general. all of the men who work at Tuttle's, or sorry, all of the men who work with Sam Lowry, everyone in the office is a man.
Right.
The one woman they have is a transcriber for interrogation,
Right.
which is kind of a laugh when you need it, but she's basically transcribing, "Oh no, please stop, that hurts," by
Right.
the interrogators. So
Well,
I did like that lady. She was funny.
so let's not spoil the ending, but last thoughts and then a tease for next time.
Last thoughts. Well, it's Terry Gilliam, so he's weird. But I do think it makes a good point. Oh, one of the things we have not talked about, screen addiction. He definitely talks about that. I think it was smart to use magnifiers to make screens bigger for the props department and the budget. But there are a ton of screens, and then their computer, like their CPUs almost seem like typewriter keyboards with a tiny screen.
Right.
And one of the things we haven't talked about, when he gets the promotion and moves to
information retrieval,
he ends up having to share an office, a tiny little office, a tiny little desk.
A desk that goes through the wall to the, and he's sharing the desk through a wall.
Yes, and the other, his half desk mate partner has a computer. He does not have a computer. So that was another funny comedic release scene in the film. But they definitely address how embroiled we can become with a television screen. The computers were not that advanced, but it was interesting. The use of technology in the film. Sam Lowry's apartment was kind of automized. It reminded me of, again, like 1950s housewife. I flip this switch and my toast and coffee are made and poured and plated, and I can just pick it up on the way out. But similar to the ducks in his apartment, it goes wrong, and then the toast gets
coffee.
So that was a cute scene too. But last thoughts, I think the writer and director wants us to challenge how we think about what we've become dependent on, whether it's the routine of government or the things that we buy or the things that we think define us, like beauty. What is the why behind that? And then I think on some level too, like Brazil is also about happiness. For Sam, his happiness was dreaming and getting away from it all. Or Jill, the girl that he dreamed about and then met in real life. But for his mom, it was plastic surgery. For the government, it was controlling people. So I think figure out what makes you happy and why, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. All right. So coming up on Tuesday evening.
Do you have any final thoughts you want to add?
Fine. Final thoughts for me. You saw me try to skip that. Well, it's about, so I see a tie-in to what we've already seen from 1984. It's about controlling information, and they do it by sheer volume. They don't deny that things are true. They just say, well, the form says. So they build a wall of paper to control people. And that, that is a real thing. And we could fall down the rabbit hole of how interconnected opportunities are. So jobs, transportation, credit, et cetera, et cetera. And these are all bits of information about who you are. And the information about you has a very real weight to it that people like you and me, I know for me, I assume for you, that is invisible because it very rarely is an issue for us, because all is well with our information for the most part. But when it's not all well, it's very, very difficult to make those things right. So, bravo. So, Tuesday, we are going to circle back to one of our favorite authors, Orwell, and talk about Brave New World. So
Orwell is not the author of Brave New World.
Oh my gosh, what did I just do? My apologies to our fan out there.
Well, to be honest, I mean, it could have been rewritten in history in 1984, and we don't know.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to everyone out there. We will scrub this when this goes out live. It will not be included in the live show. But Brave New World is definitely on Tuesday, April 21st at 8 p.m. Join us then. We welcome your questions and comments on the live show. If there are any sponsors out there, whatever, we're doing fine without you. So, JK, but seriously, we're good. It's mostly just the two of us hanging out and talking. And if that's all it ever is, I'm okay with that. So, for this edition of BM by BM, this is Maxine.
And this is Bailey.
Catch you guys next week.